Welcome to the Tuesday Live Show. This is more than just the Tuesday Live Show. This is the premiere of the Tuesday Live Show. My name is Jeff St Laurent, and for the last 3 years, I've done a live Tuesday call, which was a live conference call, and I had recorded all those. I posted them on my website, sellingcoaching.com, in my university. And so today I was just shifting my format. So after doing that, I've got 120 of those there. Great resources for you. I'm shifting to the Tuesday Live Show. So we got some people coming in right now, some great clients. Carolyn, great to see you as well. So those of you that are tuning in live, it's great to have you. If you have any questions, we can certainly type them into the comments and I'll answer them as we go along and or at the end of the show. Initially, I want you to know I will record all these. I will post them on my website, sellingcoaching.com, in my university, where I post all my other valuable education. Right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com, I have a great resource called The Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. You can check that out there if you're watching the recording, or if you're live right now. If you see in the comment section, I just posted a link for that Ultimate Startup Guide, so you can enter your name and email right from there. And then also the link to my website if you want to check both of those out. And additionally, the reason why I want you to get that Ultimate Startup Guide is not only so you can get that great resource, but also it's a great way to get you on my email community. And the reason why, as coaches, I want you on my email community is not just because I want you on there. Yes, I deliver some great information each and every week, some great stories, some great relevant points for you, but I also want you to start to understand and see how I utilize email to stay in contact with my audience. Email is so vital to stay in front of our audience and stay connected, as what we do with coaches is we want to help our people and we educate them with live events like this as an example. But then from there, we want to stay in front of them. We need to stay top of mind, and that's where our email community comes in. So we're going to get launched, and we got some good people logging in, watching us live. So it's great to have you all on there. But either way, we're going to get started on this. And today's topic is starting your coaching business from scratch. And where do we begin? And there's so many, I want to say there's so many options when it comes to what we do. You know, there's so many people out there, if you will, like myself, who are marketing to coaches, and they're promising all these different things. They're marketing all these different avenues. And I'll say it like this, there's a lot of different models that we can use to launch a coaching business. And there's automated models, there's funnels, there's automation through email, there's live face-to-face things we can do as well. So there's online, there's offline, so there's a lot of different options there. And sometimes it can be very confusing in terms of what we need to do. So the first tip I want to give you in terms of starting your business from scratch is you need to first figure out what it is that you're going for, and then more importantly, why are you going for it? And that why, you've heard that before. You know, there's a great book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why, if you want to check that book out. But a lot of people talk about their why, and your why is going to get you through any challenges. Because if you don't have a big enough why, bottom line at the end of the day, any roadblock big enough or long enough is just going to set you back, and you're going to quit. So we need a strong enough why. But bigger than that, you need to find out, what do I want with my business? So when a mentoring client comes to me and someone works with me one-on-one, one of the first things I'll ask them about is tell me what your business looks like. You know, we look at it from an income standpoint. What does it need to earn in your world? You know, we start to take a look at our financials in terms of what do we need this to produce for us financially in order to not only meet our minimum financial requirements, but more than enough, right? Because I don't want your business to just help you meet your financial needs. If you need $5,000 a month to pay all your responsibilities, well, yeah, we at least want to meet that, but we want to earn more than enough. So you have more to save. I'm a big saver. I love doing that. But that's important, right? You're going to save. You're not only going to save for future and rainy days and cash reserve, et cetera, but you also want to save for taxes. You're going to pay those, and then have money to do things and to live a life, you know, beyond what you're just doing financially. So we need to look at our financial situation in terms of what we're going to do there. But then we want to look at really how do we want to market ourselves? I've been doing this full time since 2004. And when I started off, I didn't know what I was doing. I just loved coaching. And so when I started getting myself out there, I did primarily face-to-face. I mean, of course, the internet was around back then. It doesn't feel like it was in the capacity it is today. But back when I was doing it in 2004 and so on and so on, it wasn't like it is now. So I was face-to-face. I was live. The only stuff I was doing, if you will, that's virtual would be virtual communication from, let's say, my emails, right? My communication with my email and my audience that way. But everything else was face-to-face. Now, fast forward to, let's say, 2013 or so, when I transitioned from what I was doing with my coaching business to what I'm doing now, which is helping coaches transition to a full-time business. And so when I started transitioning to that, I went completely virtual. So right now, everything I do is virtual, meaning this office that you see me in right now, this is where I conduct business from. This is how I market myself. This is how I get my message out there. This is how I interact and serve clients as well. So everything's right from this desk right here. So that's a completely different business model. So you want to start to understand, like when I'm mentoring a client, when I'll ask them is how do you see your marketing yourself? Do you see yourself marketing yourself more virtually or face-to-face, or maybe some hybrid version of it? The thing about today is, especially with the age of the internet and technology, et cetera, it's almost impossible not to have a virtual presence, even if it's just email. But with the use of social media, et cetera, how about this? It's not required. However, if you've defined your niche, or as I like to say, your headline, helping who with what specifically, if you've defined it well enough or specific enough, and it's easy to find that audience online, whether it's groups, forums, etc., social media, then it'd be silly not to use it. That's what I'd say. It'd be silly not to use it at that point. But with that being said, what I'd say is bottom line, you want to determine what type of model you want to work with in terms of marketing model, face-to-face and or virtual, or maybe some hybrid version of it. And based on that, that's when we start to understand what I just said there was finding out your niche or your headline is helping who with what specifically, right? And if you're going down the path of face-to-face, I'm going to say it like this, it's less important to have a well-defined specific niche. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's less important. And in fact, in some cases, as I work and mentor with my clients as well, sometimes if they're too specific and then they go out into like a networking event or something like that, or they're speaking to somebody, face-to-face, and that person doesn't quite fit exactly what their back end, let's say, specific headline says, sometimes it holds them back because they don't want that person going back to their website and seeing like, oh, I help coaches transition to a full-time business, and here I am talking to, let's say, a State Farm agent or an insurance professional, right? Because they're not a coach. So they might feel like there's incongruency. So sometimes when we're doing face-to-face, it's better to be more vague or not be as specific from that matter. However, let's go to the other side. If you're doing more or closer to 100% online, meaning you're relying on getting your leads from a virtual space, like I do as an example, it's super important that your headline is as specific as possible, because online there's a lot of competition. It doesn't mean that there's a lot of other coaches trying to get the same clients you are. There are, but you just see that there's a lot of coaches and a lot of people marketing to coaches because those are the groups you're involved in. So that's all you get marketed to. Those are the only people that are in front of you all the time because that's your world. But the average person doesn't have, thousands of coaches in their database and doesn't have thousands of coaches marketing to them. They might, if anybody, knows one or two at the most, and it's not in their face all the time. So the point being there is that your competition is not other coaches, rather, it's just competition for attention, right? So as right now you're on the internet, and even as I'm here, like notifications are popping up, people are like liking and loving and making comments, etc. Who knows where the notifications or alerts are popping up on your computer. If you're on your phone, you got texts coming in. I mean, you've got stuff going on in your world, so your attention is being pulled in several different ways. So when someone reads your headline, helping who with what specifically, here's the barometer that I like them to go by is you need to know instantly, number one, when someone reads this, is this for them or not? So when you read my headline, helping coaches transition to a full-time business, you should know if that's for you or not. If it's for you, then you're most likely going to read on. Or in other words, I've bought a little bit more time with you. Maybe you watch a video, maybe you scroll a little bit more. And the amount of time that it buys me for you to look at a little bit more is really how the timing is for you in your world to transition to full-time. Meaning if you're in a position right now where you're saying like you come across what I'm doing and you read my headline and you're like, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, I so want to transition to full-time. This has been on your mind. It's something that you're going after. It's like, you know, you're going to spend a lot more time looking at, figuring out, you know, going through some of my stuff. Maybe you go to my university and you start watching a video and you're scrolling, you're like, oh my God, there's hundreds of these. This is fantastic, right? So now that person needs to spend more time there. However, if that barometer, they read it and it's not for them and it needs to be black and white, because if it's not black and white, then they just kind of sit around for a little bit and they might scroll a little bit and then you've lost them because something else pulled their attention away. So that's where we really got to get to that point where we're uber specific with that headline to capture their attention. That buys a little bit more time. And then based on that, hopefully what we're doing is that we're putting some valuable resources in front of them, just like I did with you guys. So I'm doing this live show right now, and right in the comment section, if you're watching this live or if you're listening to the recording to this, like I say, go to my website, go to sellingcoaching.com, right? I got my university right on the homepage. I've got my Ultimate Starter Guide for New Coaches. I'm providing some valuable content for you, because if it's relevant for you and if it's specific enough, it's going to get your attention, then you're going to subscribe. You're going to download my information. And not only is that going to give you some valuable resources, but like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, is it's going to put you on my email community and I get to stay in front of you. And that's where we got to do is that, so when we're starting our business from scratch, is we got to think, going back to like recap this, is like, let's take a look at our financial situation. Let's take a look at how we want to market ourselves, virtual or face-to-face. And then we got to really identify, you know, who we're going after with what specifically. And then that's going to dictate from there the resource that we can start to go down. That having a great resource, like the things that I was sharing with you all, is having a great free resource. And from there, that's when it's starting to speak your message out there. Now, there's a lot of models out there with that coaches present other coaches as they help coaches maybe do something that I like do, helping you go to full-time. There's a lot of other models that don't take a play of, let's say, content marketing. I would say that the model that I help most coaches with, doesn't mean I help them with Facebook ads and things like that. I certainly do that. I do that myself as well. However, my initial recommendation to you and to start you off is going down the path of content marketing. And some people don't like content marketing, or they say it's too slow or it's too time consuming. And in some ways, they're absolutely right. Here's why I recommend it though, especially starting off. Here's why I still do it, is because at the end of the day, when you're starting off, a lot of the times what happens is that, and at least this is the coaches that I've worked with and interacted with, is the reality is even if you went to a coaching school or not, you're coming out of the gates and you're passionate about coaching. You're passionate about helping people and serving people. In a lot of cases, you don't really even know who those people are. You just want to help people. You know, if I were to give you a statistic, and this is somewhat of a not exact statistic, but it's one where that's fairly accurate. Out of 10 coaches that come to me, and as I start, if they were to hire me as their mentor coach and I were to start working through this process, I would say maybe like 5 out of 10. So half of them have a pretty good idea of the specific population that they want to go after. The other half, you know, maybe if they have an idea, it ends up being more broad than narrow, let's say it like that. And even the 5 out of 10 that have a better idea, there's probably only like 2 of them who are like zoned in and uber specific. The other 3 are still like, they approach and avoid, I like to say, right? They approach the narrow piece, and the next thing you know, a session later, they're like, well, what if I wasn't helping moms? What if I was just helping people, right? So they go close and then approach and avoid. And that's okay. The point is that that's a biggest challenge. And the reason again, this is leading into why do I recommend the model of content marketing, education-based marketing, as I like to call it, is because they don't know this. And the only way we start to get to know this is by getting to market. And so one of the other tips I'm giving you here as I talk about this model is time to market. Your time to market, meaning the time from when you start from scratch till you go to market, I want to make that as small as possible. I'm not saying don't prepare. I'm not saying don't do the back-end stuff, because when I work with my clients, my mentoring clients, we do that stuff. We prepare that stuff. But I still want that time to be as short as possible, because I want you to start getting your message out there. Like even in my private Facebook group, I've got a Selling Coaching private Facebook group. If you're watching this live, it's linked to my Facebook page, but just type in Selling Coaching and I'll go to my website there, and the link is at the top of every page to check out my private Facebook group. One of the things I'm doing in there right now is a Make Some Noise challenge. That's where I challenge coaches to do 10 Facebook Lives, one Facebook Live basically a week for 10 weeks, so a total of 10. And I don't need to do more than one a week. It's just do one a week for 10 weeks. I want to develop consistency. But the number one challenge when people go into something like that is, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? And then if I can figure out what I'm going to talk about, what am I going to talk about the next week? And I'm going to do this for 10 weeks. How am I going to do that? The challenge is what do I talk about? And what I know is that if you're going to get clients, if you're going to build an audience, however you build an audience, even if you're going to build an audience using Facebook ads and you're going down a more automated model, so to speak, you still need to speak a message. What are you going to send the Facebook ad to, right? You got to have a webinar. You got to have some type of a resource, whether it's a recorded webinar, a live webinar, or something recorded that you do, or a weekly live show like this, or a written or recorded resource that they're going after. It's still education-based marketing, right? You've still got to be able to get to the point where you can speak and articulate that. So the reason I want you doing something like a Facebook Live as an example on a weekly basis is I want you to start articulating your message. You need to speak fluently, coherently, intelligently about your topic. You need to express yourself. You need to be able to find all the neural pathways in the brain, right? You got to start making those connections so you start finding your language. You've learned a lot of stuff. You're not short on learning, because the average coach that I've worked with and the people that I talk to, they're not short on personal development, right? They've done all the personal development programs. They're involved in probably 2 or 3 personal development programs as it is, right? And they're online, they're reading, they're like absorbing information. And I remember that phase where I was just, oh my God, I'm absorbing information. And that's fantastic. But there's one thing about absorbing information, but then if I'm just keeping that information in, then it's not doing me any good in terms of creating results in my business. It's doing me good from a mindset perspective, but also there's a limit to that, right? I can feel good because I'm growing and expanding, my mind, et cetera, my perspective, and I'm spewing that out into the world in terms of my connections and my family, and they're like, oh my God, you're so positive and you're so optimistic. But now it comes time to say like, okay, well, I want to do this as a business. Great. So now I'm saying is get your microphone out, right? Get the camera going, or record yourself, do a call, do a Facebook Live, do something, write an article and post it somewhere. And I get the apprehension with that, because it's like, well, who's going to want to listen? Who's going to want to read or watch or consume my information? And that's just it. You've got to know who's going to want to do that and why they're going to want to do it, right? So when I come on and I do my live show now, like, of course, I'm not saying this to be cocky or egotistical. I'm proud and confident. That's the difference, is that of course I know coaches are going to want to watch this and listen to this because it's valuable information, right? And I'm confident with that because I've come from a place of knowing this and putting that out there. And if you're not there yet, my whole point is that I want you to get to that place of being confident. And the only way you're going to do that is start getting your message out there. That's why I'm such a big advocate of that. That's why when someone hires me as a mentor coach, like, once we get things going and figure out kind of their direction with their headline, what I'm saying there is saying, okay, well, let's talk about how we can get out there. Let's start to create some structure around how you're getting your message out there on a weekly basis. How are you starting to get your message out there to communicate with your email audience? And everyone has an email audience. It might not be a relevant audience yet, meaning if you're working with corporate moms, et cetera, maybe you don't have any corporate moms, but you do have your friends, you do have your family, you do have past business or career contacts that we can start and we can bring on to a platform like Aweber, which is going to be our email program. And then we can start connecting with those people. We can start sending an email every week, right? We can start to create some structure around that, even at a minimum level. I've got coaches that still have full-time jobs, they're full-time parents, and they're full-time at life, but they're still looking to launch a full-time coaching business. And yeah, it's going to take some time, but it's like we can still provide some bare minimum structure to your business where you're getting emails out on a weekly basis, maybe even just one. And yes, at least one a week. We've got to start with that. This isn't like, when I say old school, back 10 years from now, even where they did the newsletter. It's not a newsletter anymore, a monthly newsletter where you just throw up on people and share all this information in like this one massive email that no one's ever going to read. It's weekly communication with your audience. That's where we're at right now. People don't want the automation. Yeah, there's people that automate things, but it's like, I want you to write a live email and actually connect with your audience and tell them a story, tell them what you're going through, show them that you're a real person doing real things. And yes, you have real challenges. Like I have challenges too. It doesn't mean that I don't have challenges in my business. The difference is I've been doing it long enough where I understand myself in these situations. So if there's a lull in my business or there's a lull in income and or getting clients or any of the above, I can manage that. I can understand it because I've been there before. But when you're going through those things in life, like we all have challenges. And as a coach, we don't need to be perfect. We're not expected to be perfect or the expert in life or whatever challenge that you're going after. What we're looking to do is we're looking to be an expert in the coaching process. And to me, the coaching process is taking someone where they are now, figuring out where do they want to go and figuring out how do we get them there as quick and as efficiently as possible. And that's what we do. We don't have to deal with in the past. We have to be able to be expert in any of the specifics of that because we believe that they're the expert. So rest in the fact that you're the expert in the coaching process. And of course, in the beginning, we don't feel like we're the expert. Even if you've gone through a school, you have all the tools, you have all the mechanics, you have it all in theory. It's all in your logical mind. It hasn't been applied yet or enough for it to be an emotional experience where it's part of you and you have the confidence with it yet. But we all know that that's just why we have to do all this stuff in order to get to do that. I remember very vividly when I was starting to coach and I'm on the phone and I'm trying to think of the next question. I'm like, oh my God, what do I ask next? And I'm like, oh, I can't think about it. I got to be in the moment and just let it flow. And I remember working through that, but I worked through that. That's all going to come. So any fears you have around that, those are, I'll just say it's the false evidence appearing real. It's that false evidence that you're telling yourself that's not real. You've got to get past that. And I can coach the heck out of you. It's still going to be there. You've got to just do that. But now we get to that point of getting out there and recognizing and gaining the confidence that your message is real and it's valuable. And the only way we start doing that is by expressing ourselves. And so where I wanted to start to wrap this up is when I say start your coaching business from scratch, is that's what you need to do to get off the ground is some of those fundamental pieces of looking at your finances, figuring that stuff out, figuring out what type of marketing direction you want to go in, online, offline, and or some hybrid version of the both. Getting your audience as defined as possible. And like I said, if you're going online, you got to define it as specifically as possible. Offline, you can get away with being more vague. And then once you do that, creating some type of system where you get some structure where you're getting your message out there consistent on a weekly basis, not only in some education-based format like this, and there's plenty of formats out there from the versions of podcasts and Facebook, YouTube Lives. There's written articles you can post. There's conference calls you can do. There's webinars. And I think I said podcasts already. And there's probably other stuff I'm not even saying or thinking of right now. But there's plenty of mediums you can use to get out there. The point is getting out there on a consistent basis and then starting to have some type of valuable resource for those people. So when you draw them in, that they can become a part of your email community. And then once they're part of that email community, be consistently communicating with them on a weekly basis, right? So to me, that's the baseline structure of your business. And so do that. And that's what if I say my specialty in starting coaches off, when I mentor with them is starting them from, point A, which is call it scratch, to that point of getting them with all that structured and set up. And so once you're structured and set up, from there, I'm not going to go into details of this part right now, but I'll give a quick overview of it, is where we're going from there is essentially we're looking to get into the space of how do we market ourselves and how do we get ourselves out and expose ourselves more to that audience through different mediums, whether it's face-to-face or online. Right? And that's going to now start to turn up ideally some reactions, and I would start to call those leads. Any interaction you start to have with people, those are leads. And therein lies the second phase of our business, which we'll get into in some other of these live shows, and that is how do we turn those leads into paying clients? That's where I have a program. It's called Live Sales Conversations, livesalesconversations.com, if you want to check that out. But that's where I'm helping coaches convert their leads into paying clients, right? So there's this one end of how do we set up and structure the marketing, and the marketing is just to get our message out there, right? And so we outline kind of the the outline of that and the bullet points of that and some philosophies on how to get going, time to market, get it out, get out. And then that's the marketing aspect of it. And then there's the other part of it is the selling aspect of it is how do we, now that we have these leads that are coming in from our marketing efforts, how do we then begin to create those conversations, develop the relationships, and ideally convert some of that into paying business. So that's the kind of the framework of where I want to go to get you started. Like I said, I've got some great resources on my website, sellingcoaching.com. So I have those, if you're watching live, I have those links posted in the first comment right there. You can check that out. Also right on the homepage of my website, I've got that ultimate startup guide for new coaches. So those are some great resources in addition to these live shows that I have for you that I can offer you to get started. Of course, if you're in a position where you know you're challenged with some of this stuff, but you need some guidance, consider working with me as your mentor coach. You can always go to sellingcoaching.com right at the Work With Me page. And if you scroll to the bottom, there's a form you can fill out, and then that will come directly to me. I will follow up with you directly. Yes, I will call you, believe it or not. And that's what I tell my people to do, and that's what I do and we'll create a relaxed conversation and we can kind of see where we go from there and see what the next appropriate steps are. So that's what I have to offer you for today. For those of you that are on still, I'm going to field some questions. So if you're watching the recording of this and you can tune in live, have the opportunity, we can always interact afterwards and have some questions. So if you're watching this, I'll say goodbye to you